Hey, here we go. Finally, another movie madness segment. I managed to snag a character from Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer. Again, what makes this movie madness and not just a regular action figure? This is not part of the Marvel Legends line. The Marvel Legends line did not exist when this came out. This was a figure released tied to a movie, specifically for a movie, not part of an existing figure line. This was still Hasbro. They had the license at the time still. But this is just put out there, syncing up with the movie line, did not continue. This was just a, I don't want to say cash grab, but that's what a lot of these were when we saw figures tied to movies. They came out, they didn't have anything really special about them. Sometimes they were just straight up, just an attempt to benefit off the release of the film. And at varying degrees of success or just zaniness to them as they kind of expanded beyond what was seen in the movies, because they just played off the factor of the fan love or the fan base for it, and not necessarily the devoted collector to it. So they had to get a little creative. This guy at least has, I want to say, pretty related to the movie. There were some scenes where Dr. Doom was able to zap a little electricity out, so he has that sort of look to him. Not going to have the face, and I think it's because there are like licensing issues with the likeness of the characters too. So a lot of these you won't even see faces. I think one of my favorite one was when Terminator Salvation came out. They didn't have like the licensing for Christian Bale's face or something, so John Connor just had a mask on, even though you never see him wear a mask the entire movie, and he's just called John Connor. So really weird action figure to even bother to make. Yeah, so with this guy here, this was kind of the standard packaging for all the figures, where you had the Fantastic Four here, and they had their Four-mobile that they had in the movie. And then on the back, you could just see the character with a little story about him. And then you had other characters in line. Of course, they had the Silver Surfer, which was the only one that was pretty much like his comic book counterpart. And then you had weird things like, the Human Torch could shoot little fireballs, and Mr. Fantastic was just stretched out. So there are different elements to this. So, I mean, it had its highs and lows. It wasn't the worst line. I just wanted to share something. This segment is about sharing characters that were made out around the times of the movies and the weird little gimmicks they have, like we did with Sabretooth last time. So why don't I have you guys come in and we'll check this guy out. All right, so here's our guy in his packaging again. Just letting you see up close some of those details. It's Hasbro, Marvel, and Rise of the Silver Surfer. So we'll check this out. This is back from 2006, this figure, so this is before the Marvel Universe existed. I want to say that was 2008, maybe, when Iron Man came out. I could be wrong, but I think it was around that time frame. And so this is before we had like quality Marvel movies, I want to say. You could have your differing opinions about X-Men movies, and anything after the first one I didn't think was amazing, but we didn't really get past the campiness of comic book movies until we saw the emergence of Iron Man and then the Infinity Saga. So this is pre that, so interesting period of time. Although I didn't really mind the first Fantastic Four movie, didn't really care much for the second. So we got this guy here in his little weird bubble, seeing the light of day for the first time ever. And here we go. And the packaging, he's going to be secure. Oh, look at this. His straps are breaking off because they're so old. Packaging was not meant to last. This is kind of funny. It is just peeling off of him. He's just falling out. I don't think maybe I need to cut one. Let's see here. What is holding you in? It's taped in the back. I see. Weird way to secure a character to a package by taping him in. But this is pre-collecting days of like high-end figures coming out, back when things only cost a few bucks and not $20 to $30 an action figure. So they didn't spend a whole lot of time engineering the packaging. So this guy did not really make that cut. So we have our guy here, and he's got this nice green trench coat on. So it's kind of wavy, kind of spiffy, capturing that look, and it's layered on. It's not one piece. It's a lightweight plastic, so no complaints with that. That's a nice design function to him. The arms, however, are all, one piece painted on, so he's not entirely wearing this trench coat, but it's got this nice rubbery feel to it. So same with the hood. So it gives you that little aspect of layering. You can see his face in there. The mask doesn't come off. This is it. So he is Doctor Doom. He can't go back to his counterpart, but he looks like he's just wearing some khakis underneath. And he's got some shoes on, but these just look like regular pants. So he could actually surprising amount of articulation at this stage. He's got his arms, he has his elbows, he has his head and his legs and knees and ankles, all sorts of articulation points. So not bad at all for that aspect of the character for this time period. I'm kind of impressed. I'm surprised they're not just one arm with just 5 POA. A lot of articulation on this guy. So well-made figure, despite the time period, despite the cash grab there. He has that hip rotation too. So yeah, kind of impressive. So his gimmick is this force lightning, whatever it's called here, that fits in his hand. And we'll see it, now it doesn't lock in place or anything like that. So what it does is there's a spring in there, so you could pull it back like so and then let it go, and it will go a very limited distance, as you saw there, and give that impression that it's shooting forward. So I could pull all the way back and I get just a little bit of motion to it. So that's really it in terms of what he could do. He still has the human hands. He's not wearing the gloves or anything, although you could see a little bit, I don't know if you can really make that out, there's a little bit of that kind of spray paint on there to make it look like he has the metal coming through his body. Or it could just be a bad paint job and it was the base color underneath. I'm not sure, but I'd like to think they intentionally did that to have the metal coming through his body, although I thought at this point he had control of it after coming in contact with the Silver Surfer. But I think this is meant to be pre that, and this is the first time he encounters the Silver Surfer before he gets zapped and his metallic look starts fading. So maybe, I mean, props if that was all intentional. That's a really nice design aspect to this figure, made back in 2006, almost 20 years old, which is kind of scary if you think about it. But this guy is quite ancient at this point. I mean, someone come to consider him vintage. I mean, that's a weird concept. It's very subjective of what people call vintage. I remember collecting Star Wars in '95. People referred to the Kenner collection as vintage, and but this was back in 1995, and the Kenner collection was only 10 years old. So, and that was considered vintage back in '95. This is 20 years old, and people would probably refuse to consider this vintage at this point. So, like I said, it's completely subjective. Yeah, I mean, we're looking at these characters that are that are a generation old now, and it's weird to think that something like this could be vintage in that respect. I mean, you compare it to its contemporaries, like the Marvel Legends line, and of course, they're going to have much better articulation. I mean, still very similar, but better articulation. I mean, the hands will rotate too. They're going to have a way better design aesthetic to them as well, and much more functionality and more accessories. Probably not as many gimmicks like this. But for the time period, 20 years ago, this is pretty good. I mean, a lot of articulation on this guy as a figure. You can't do much with this hand because it has to stay in this position to shoot his little lightning. That nice spray paint capturing the metal look coming through the flesh. This layered on rubber cape as opposed to just being one solid piece, which we saw on a lot of Hasbro figures at the time. So this was around the emergence of the Black Series line. I want to say that line came out, or no, I'm mistaken, I'm sorry, that line came out closer to 2013. So this is just the 7 years prior to the emergence of the Black Series line. So we didn't quite get that level of detail yet, even though those early figures were not very detailed in the face or other features like that. So this is just before that period, but this articulation seems reminiscent of the early Black Series. So they sort of had the framework in there with some of their characters before we got into that line. But yeah, all in all, I would say this is not the worst movie figure I've seen. I mean, it's a little campy to have this feature, and this is a feature you see me talk about in the 90s. Like, everything had to shoot. It needed some kind of functionality. So it's surprising that they captured that in this line I showed you on the back of the package. Human Torch had shooting fireballs. He's got a shooting beam here. Like, everything has to shoot. So we didn't really get over that, I guess. So anyway, that is your look at Doctor Doom Lightning Attack from Rise of the Silver Surfer. All right, I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this fun little movie product. You know, not the worst I've seen, not the best, but he's pretty good for his time period, for the capturing of the on-screen look. I think it nails that. I think he's got a lot of articulation and design aspect to him, so he wasn't just a straight-up quick cash grab. This was actually a character. Like, we see the Marvel Legends line now releasing all these early Marvel movie film-based characters. Some of them are releasing from movies like the X-Men and whatnot, so they're capturing those looks now. Super detailed, great in the face as well, with that super hyper-real, whatever it's called, look that they have with the photorealistic look they capture on the characters. So we're seeing all that come back. So for the time period, this was pretty good. I mean, no fault to Hasbro for what they had to work with at the time, and they did a great job. I mean, it's got the articulation, it's got the design aspect to it. This is a little silly, but other than that, I think he came off pretty well, and wouldn't have been the worst Doctor Doom based on the movie to end up with. So that is our look for this time on Movie Madness. Of course, we will have more. We love getting recommendations. There are a ton out there, and I will be grabbing more to show you guys. But if you have one you want to see, let me know. It's going to be a short-timed figure run tied to the movie. It can't be like Marvel Legends character going back in time covering that release of a character. It has to be short one tied to the movie. So not just Marvel. I know the last two we did were Marvel. It was just easy because there were so many released at the time period. But there was stuff like Batman. There was stuff like Hook, if you remember Hook. There were so many different movies that had really short figural runs just tied to the film. So let us know what you're interested in seeing, and I'll try to make that happen. We always love hearing feedback and making this a conversation and not just a lecture. So let me know what you guys would like to see, and I'll try to make that happen. So that's all we got for this time. As always, like, subscribe, and follow. We'll see you guys next time.